Good evening, dear friends, and welcome to our show. Here we are where spirit meets story, truth and mystery with your host, Dr. Douglas James Cottrell. We are journeying together through the deeper meanings behind today's world events, ancient wisdom, and the quiet whispers of the divine. We're going to reflect, remember, and reconnect. If this is your first time with us, welcome to the family. Make sure to follow us and ring that bell, check those checks, and click on that link to subscribe wherever you're watching and listening from wherever you are in the world. This show isn't just a broadcast. It's a broadcast with intention, with spirit, and with love. Now, here is Douglas.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you back here tonight. I'm your host, Douglas Cottrell, and I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Jack Bialik, also known as Oz. He's right behind the curtain, and he's going to help us tonight, taking your questions and getting on the show live. Hey, what would you do if World War III were to break out tomorrow? What would your spiritual faith take you to? Would you be afraid? Would you look to survive? Would you trust in God Almighty? Has the world ever gone through such a situation as this before? It has, of course. We all know world destruction, and the world has started over again, according to the great seers and those who have had the foresight, like Edgar Cayce and all the way back to Nostradamus. But what would you do if World War III were to break out tonight? Is there a spiritual consciousness? Is this God's plan? Let us know. Remember, you can chat, come in the chat and ask a question, or you can email us directly. The show is delayed a couple of minutes, so email is better. thesoulreportlive@gmail.com, and Oz will take your question, and we'll put those questions right here on the air. So understand that tonight, the show might be a title that would cause some folks a little curiosity or maybe even anxiety. World War III, God works in mysterious ways. It sounds ominous, I know, but I want to propose something unusual, maybe even radical. What if war, conflict, and chaos, what we're experiencing right now, are part of a divine plan to birth a better world? Stay with me on that one. The state of the world right now, we are seeing frightening headlines. Military aggression in Venezuela. World leaders talking openly about territorial invasions, economic domination, and regime change. The global fear of escalation, whispers of World War III. That's all what we're hearing now on social media, on regular media, and on those dark side media out there in the world. The conspiracy fellows all have their truth, of course, but when we could talk politics, we could talk economics, but here on the Soul Report, we ask the bigger question. What is the soul lesson in this moment of history? What is Spirit teaching us? And how can we respond as spiritual beings in a time of darkness? Well, it's not the first time somebody has reached out and complained to God. There was a prophet, pardon me if I mispronounce his name, Habakkuk, the prophet who asked God, why? Why was there such corruption at his time in the world? Why would God allow it to endure? Let me take you back to the Bible, to a little known but powerful prophet named Habakkuk. He didn't write glowing phrases. He asked hard questions. He looked around for the corruption of religious leaders, the suffering of good people, and he cried out, God Almighty, oh, how long, God, must I call for help? But you do not listen. Why do you tolerate wrongdoing? I'm sure, my friends, all of us have asked that question. How can God let bad things happen to good people? How can God let difficulties happen to children? How could God allow these things to go on in the world that are not loving and kind and what we expect of God? Well, when Habakkuk asked, what's going on, God? Why are you allowing this corruption and evil to exist? This is what God answered. but not with comfort, not with a miracle. Instead, the Almighty said, I am raising up the Babylonians, your enemies, to be my instrument of correction. My instrument of correction. Can you imagine this? God answered to a corrupt nation, or God's action to a corrupt nation, was to let their enemies come in and bring about change, even though it was through destruction. Are we living that same story again? We might ask today, why is evil allowed to rise? Why are secret police snatching people off the streets without due process? Why are administrations bombing faraway nations? Is World War III looming? I can hardly get that out. It's hard to read. Why is war looming? Why is power being abused across the globe? Well, maybe, just maybe, the answer is, I am doing something you won't understand if I told you. I am doing something to us people that you wouldn't understand if I told you. Well, if I was Habakkuk back in the day and God said, I'm going to let the Babylonians come in and conquer the people, I would gather that he didn't understand then, and I wouldn't understand if I was there then. But however, maybe shaking of the world is a cleansing. Maybe the chaos is the cubicle, burning away the lies, the greed, the exploitation. If you've ever cleaned out a wound, you know it stings before it heals. Let's turn to the biblical prophecy of the Four Horsemen, not as a metaphor alone. The book of Revelation speaks of four horsemen. For those who may not know, it's a story about what could be considered a prophecy of world destruction. Look it up. The white horse, there's four of them. The white horse represents false peace and deception. We might be in that stage right now. The next stage after this false peace and deception comes the red horse, the metaphor for war and violence, which of course, if there's injustice and there is deception and there is greed, naturally this injustice leads to war. So the second stage is the red horse. I think we're approaching that next, right here, right now. Started in 2024, and it's continuing now with the red horse, or the consciousness of the red horse, war and violence. The next horse to come, or the next consciousness in the world, will be the black horse, famine and injustice. Famine means the shortages of all things. Right now, we see trade wars going on. I'm predicting there will be more of this famine. There will be, I'm going to even say, not my vision, someone else I know close to me had a vision of biological warfare starting in the U.S. as well as other places in North America. So the black horse represents famine and injustice. And injustice can be considered, we don't care. Not my problem. I don't want to get involved. I'm looking the other way. My side, my political party is right. Your side is wrong. We're not all equal in injustice. And finally, the fourth horseman represents that consciousness of death, despair, and collapse. Think about that. These four horsemen, or four spiritual consciousness, represent the four stages leading up to calamity and world change. First, false peace and deception. Second, war and violence, sometimes escalating to world wars. Third, famine and injustice. And finally, death, despair, and collapse. And what happens after that? Are these literal figures, or are they forces of consciousness running through the world right now? I'm putting them out there as consciousness. The whole world has a conscious itself, and so do all the people of the world. So we're going through these 4 stages, but what happens next? What do you think? Send me an email right now. Give me your opinion. The Soul Report Live @gmail.com. Let me know what you think of the show so far. Let me know what you think about these 4 levels of consciousness that we're sliding into. We are watching these horses ride right now. They may be wearing modern clothes like military uniforms, business suits, media empires, but the spirit of these individuals, this consciousness, is the same. Let me ask you, dear listener, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you do if global war broke out tomorrow? Is your soul prepared, or just your bunker? Would your faith hold strong, or would you crumble in fear? If God's solution doesn't look like peace, would you still trust it? Would you still trust in God? As a spiritual being practicing a spiritual practicality, you can email us and let us know your thoughts. As we go through this time of change, this time of chaos, which has been predicted by Edgar Cayce, Ross Peterson, Paul Solomon, myself, and others, sayers and foreseers and people who have seen the future, this is the time, including all the way back to the prophets of old. How do you think we should go ahead? I'm looking for a discussion here. What do you think we should do? Do you believe we're in this time of chaos? Do you believe the world is just going to wake up tomorrow, everything's going to settle down? Or do you believe the 4 horsemen are riding now from what would be the first episode of false peace and deception into war and violence? I think we might already be there, in my humble opinion. But what do you think? Let me ask you, what do you think? Do you think people realize how close we can come to at this time as a global conflict? What does it mean spiritually to trust in a plan when it certainly looks like disaster out there right now? Can the world actually improve through destruction? Like forest fires making room for new life? As you know, when a forest fire goes by, the old is wiped away and new life comes. Do we really want peace, or do we just want comfort? Take yourself back to the time of that great prophet who asked God why. And God said, well, be careful what you ask for is the underlying tone here, my friends. He said, well, I'm going to send the Babylonians over to conquer your land and put you into destruction. And that is how I'm going to clean up the mess. Do we really want that? Do we want the world to go through a war worldwide? You know, in Fatima and other places, there was the prediction that 2/3 of the world's population must pass away before we go through this 1,000 years of peace. Do we want that? Absolutely not. Can we prevent it? Well, since it's been forecast or prophesized, the answer must be yes. Who has to change here? The world or you? There is evil in the world, absolutely. When I was a young man and on my spiritual path, I believed that 75% of the world was good and 25% was of the dark forces. Well, here I am now in my mid-70s, and now I'm thinking I got it wrong. It's the other way around. 25% of the world is good. Good people, good consciousness, good thoughts, good words, good deeds. And 75% of the world is not. They're involved in shades of darkness, some to the darkest of the dark, some to the not so dark as the dark, but they're still of the dark forces. So can the 25% of us turn the world around, change those 75%? I believe, yes, there is always hope. If we go to World War III, and maybe this is God's way of saying, this is the cleanup, this is the renovation before the new build, we can understand it. So what do? Well, if we're involved in places where we can't get out of, then we have to make do. And that's where you pray for abundance, for relief, and for protection. By praying, you will mitigate the experiences you're going through. The further you are away from the crisis, the more you ought to pray, and the more you will be able to go through this time of uncertainty, this time of chaos. And then we'll be able to help others in the world, those who need assistance wherever we can give it. However, for now, remembering the question is, the prophet asked God why, and God said, I'm going to send those to you who are going to conquer you. And in time, it worked. The Babylonians were defeated and his people were freed. But he did without comfort. So I ask you again, what do you think, my friends? Email us at thesoulreportlive@gmail.com and give me your comment. Why is evil allowed to rise? Do you think there's no guidance from above? Can you comprehend how God works? I can't, because no one can really understand the mind of God. How can the finite mind understand the infinite mind? But we can gain through the wisdom of the prophets. But back to the prophecy. The four horsemen are riding here. What do you think? Now's the time to let us know. What does it really mean to trust in a plan if it looks like disaster? We're about to find out. Hey, we have a special guest tonight. It's Paul Samuel Dolman, who is here. He's a world traveler. And if I can just pull up some information on him here. He has looked for wisdom. He has connected on a soul level with other people. He has self-realization that applies to everyday living, finding wisdom in all things, caring about others and showing it, making a positive difference in the world, loving who or what is in front of me at the moment is what he says, being creative in a myriad of ways, and challenging myself to grow, shift, and expand. He's written his book, Hitchhiking with Larry David. We're going to find all about that, and we're going to take a short break, and when we do, we're going to come back, and Paul will be with us tonight. Paul travels extensively and gives talks on a variety of subjects. He has been a professional musician and songwriter. He currently divides his time between Martha's Vineyard and Anastasia Island. We'll be right back with Paul.
Are you searching for clarity, wisdom, and a deeper understanding of the spiritual world around you? Meet Douglas James Cottrell, PhD, a visionary author and teacher who's helped countless people transform their lives. His books are a gateway to profound insights, offering guidance, inspiration, and the tools you need to unlock your full potential. From unlocking your intuition to discovering spiritual truths, Douglas's books are your trusted companions on the path to personal growth. Don't wait. Start your journey today. Visit his website douglasjamescottrell.com to explore and purchase his life-changing work. Your next breakthrough is just a page away.
And we're back, my friends. I want to welcome our friend Paul Samuel Dolman here. And as we get, he's on the phone right now. So, Jack, let's connect and see what we can do with talking to this amazing fellow. Good evening, Paul. How are you tonight?
Hey, thanks for having me on. I love your provocative opening and your questions. You have me pondering here in my seat.
Well, we can hear you sort of okay tonight. And we'd like to know tell us about your book, Hitchhiking with Larry David. What's that all about?
Well, I was actually in a transitional period of my life, and I went to Martha's Vineyard to try to catch my breath, visit my parents, and I felt really open to whatever was next. I had no idea what I wanted to do next. I'd gotten out of the entertainment business. I sold my company, and I didn't know what I wanted, but my soul definitely wanted something new. So I did that. And I was in between. It wasn't immediate. I had a couple of years of just traveling and meditating and asking a lot of questions, reading a lot of books, meeting a lot of people. And I was back in Martha's Vineyard where my parents were for the summer. And I felt led to go hitchhiking like when I was a young kid. It's one of the places in the world that's quite safe for that. And to my utter surprise and shock, the great comedian and creator of Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm, Larry David, pulled over and said, "Where are you going?" And he let me get in the car. And we ended up having a very deep conversation. And what was interesting is he had never picked up a hitchhiker in his whole life. He let me know that. And so when I asked him what made him pull over, why did he pull over and pick me up, of all people? He paused for a long time and he put his hand on his heart and said, "I don't know. I just felt like I was really supposed to." And I thought, wow, that's interesting. And then we talked about higher forces and things like that. And then throughout that summer, I went hitchhiking a lot, and I was in this strange, interesting, fabulous synchronistic flow. He and I kept running into each other in crazy ways, and other people and other stories. Then the very last night of that summer, I had a kind of a conscious awakened dream. And in the dream, whatever the beautiful universe song of inspiration, the muse is, it's a mystery, suggested to me that perhaps I might want to write a book called Hitchhiking with Larry David. And then I realized I was in the in-between, and I asked if I would remember that prompt. The universe said yes. And then I woke up and I wrote it down, pondered it for another 3 weeks to a month, and then just started writing. A friend was going through a divorce from California. I let him live with me in Nashville where I was. And turned out he had been an editor at a magazine for 8 years. I didn't know it at the time. I thought he was a television producer and a sports producer. So the universe, after I accepted the prompt and started writing, they moved an editor into my house. So we ended up working on the book together. It was the most fun I've ever had creatively. And I had no idea it was a book. I didn't have any grand aspirations. I literally had zero expectations. I thought it was a Google document and sort of like a journaling experiment, trying to figure it out. And the book became like a living thing, I felt like, especially in hindsight. So I was working with this energy, this living being, which became the book. And I put it out very modestly. And over time, it grew to like a cult classic. And I still get emails from all over the world from it. It has a very powerful effect on people. It seems to find people at the right time and in the right place of their life. And I was incredibly honest and authentic about it because I really didn't think of it. A book would come out, and the night before it came out, I did have the, oh my God, what have I done thought? But then it's too late. But it was very liberating to be that transparent and then just put it out there. And really the crux of the book, which is a great gospel of sorts, was just stay open, because you never know where the magic might happen or will happen or how it will happen. And so the book could be yes, and yeah, why not? Maybe. Stay discerning, but what can happen? Just sort of ride the flow, the synchronicity, the wind. And that's unique for every person who reads it or listens or breathes. Every being. They can find their flow, their frequency, their path. And then you come in and out of it to varying degrees. Then you forget, and you get very linear or bogged down. You wonder if there's going to be World War III you're talking about. And then you come back into maybe a greater resonance and harmony and listening. And that's an ongoing balance. It's like a high wire act, but here in the world. And I think it's best done if you're grounded in real life too, and you're, for me, and not just out in the foraging with them to try to eat. I would not succeed at that. So that's what happened with the book. And it's almost like I released this genie, and he or she, it is out in the world creating good vibes. And how lucky for me. And I just listened. And I did the work.
Well, I see that you have a headline here that says, what matters most? That's a fundamental question that everybody should ask, no matter what time of the day it is, whether you're having a good time or not such a good time, to assess what matters most. How did you come up with that? I like that.
Thanks. And that is the name of a book I wrote originally, and then a podcast, and I've done some TV segments on it. And I like the way you said what time of day, because I think it's an ongoing, evolving question. That was an interesting thing. The first thing that happened with that, I was riding through the countryside, feeling very connected, and I felt struck by like a download. It's very rare for me. I'm not like doing that. I don't want my car insurance company to hear this and raise my rates. But I just felt this thing called what matters most, and I thought gathering the world's wisdom, like a dream catcher, but also just a cultivator, a fisherman, and then cultivating that wisdom and then putting it out in this buffet so others could partake in it for free, or if they want to find the books or whatever. And I was fascinated by wisdom from different people. And so that started the process of it. And I was going to do a TV show. I got Al Gore to say yes, Maya Angelou. I knew Robert Plant in Nashville. He said, yeah, I'll do it. I love it. Because I'd had conversations with those people already. And basically all I said is the great conversation we had last Thursday. The only difference is it being recorded. So maybe somebody else could benefit from it. Mm-hmm. And everyone liked that idea. It did not manifest as a TV show like 7 different times. Later on, in the embryonic state of podcasting, I think 13 years ago, I started a show, and I just called it What Matters Most. And I started it off, and now I'm just closing in on 1,200 shows with wonderful people like you and others, very diverse. U.S. congressmen, people running for president, foreign leaders, the president of Mexico, spiritual leaders, gurus, saints and sinners, whatever. Just like this pressing question, what matters most? And I love all the different perspectives. And for me, it's an ever-evolving question, but with pillars of just, I think, deep connection to the source, God, soul, whatever you call it. What words do you use in kitchen cocina? An inner connection that then fuels an outer connection and lifestyle, where then you're connected to nature and other people, again, with healthy boundaries. I think martyrdom is the path. And when you live from that priority and from that intention, it helps me be relaxed and enjoy the finer things. Most of them are free. Like even today, I thought never be in a hurry. Let people come in front of you, don't speed. Take it in, look at the light, and be kind of a slowed down, more vertical experience than trying to be in a hurry and cover a lot of ground. So, and the show is just blowing my mind with the people that have come on, the things that have been discovered live on the air or taped, and it's just been a godsend for me. And I made a lot of friends all over the world that I get to then meet in person or listeners and stuff like that. So I created my own community. I found my spirit family. That 25% you talked about.
Well, I think everybody in the world's the same at some spiritual level. And, like attract like going on here. And as would you agree that as one gets older, as one evolves, you begin to enjoy the journey, not just simply arriving at the destination?
Yeah, I like the way you said that. It's true, because you probably come from the same mindset that there is no destination. And in fact, even this life as this form, this story, is only a very brief, infinitely small step, and I feel, an eternal journey, probably in infinite forms and non-forms. But as this, what a privilege to be healthy, functional, and then just have experiences rather than, I don't really have goals anymore. I used to be crazy, driven, goal perfectionist, lunatic, and that brought a lot of unhappiness, because that's the ego chasing mirages, and those are about as satisfying as trying to catch a real mirage, which is an illusion. But if you can enjoy what's happening, feel the temperature of the room, smell the Italian sauce, and marinating, and really try to catch that eternal moment, like in a grain of sand, like Blake talked about. For me, that's a beautiful experience. I would never tell anyone to go do anything. I used to want to preach it, tell it, share it, like somebody you just found Jesus or AA or whatever. You want everyone to join your club. I found that in hindsight now for me there again. I don't want to tell anybody unless asked, and then maybe just point them inward and mention things that helped me, books or teachers like Joseph Campbell, Eckhart Tolle, Jesus, Gandhi, King, Yogananda, huge teacher, the Tao. It's the wisdom's everywhere, and you can find and cultivate it, but you have to apply it, and then it takes time to integrate it into our dense forms and create neuroplasticity in our brains so it becomes healthy habits. And it's an ongoing process, because the second you fall asleep at the wheel, the default setting is an ego-based linear self that doesn't want to get eaten and wants to get to the green light faster. So you can't judge that aspect, but you can sort of control, alt, delete, take charge of your life, and do present moment awareness. Not easy, but it's a better way. And that's, again, like you said, you're enjoying the process, the journey.
Well, I think everybody comes to that point where you arrive at a pivotal point. When you got picked up as you were hitchhiking, all of a sudden you asked the driver, why did you do that? And the driver said, I've never done this before in my life, but I just felt I ought to. And out of that came a friendship and a lot of dialogue. So why do those moments, do you think, happen? Is there a prearranged moment? I'm asking rhetorical questions. I know you got the answer to that one, but is it prearranged, or is it the spur of the moment? Is it two soul friends meeting up to carry on with the project? I've had a lot of people on the show, and they always have that moment, which is pivotal. And as such, any rationale as to why that happens for the audience?
Yeah, I like the way you phrase that. In the book, I call them divine appointments. It's like our soul sets up an appointment. I think we're having one tonight, or with Larry. So we had an appointment. Soul set it up, and sometimes you meet people. You meet them again for the first time. You know them, and your souls know each other, and there's this deep connection through who knows how long or how far. And they just sort of really connect, and they're like appointments. And hearing your way you phrase it so eloquently, it's almost like there are also opportunities, perhaps portals. Like, he could have not picked me up. I could have not listened to the call in the morning and stuck my thumb out. And then the book, that invitation evaporated into the ether as a non-event. But if you take these invitations from the super loving universe, if you get on the magic carpet, you get on the train, you get in the car with your thumb out, and you listen, and it says, maybe, perhaps, write this. It always suggests. It's not didactic or dictatorial. It's loving. It's, hey, what about this? And it asks also, waits to be invited in. Everyone does that. I invited in all day, help, guide, bring me magic. And it's like a waiter or waitress that says, you got it, medium rare. And so I think anybody can do that. This is the glory of the system, how it is so democratic. We're not talking about buying a program or the 22,000 simple steps, or memorize this or else. Just get quiet, slow down, turn off the devices and the noise, find a quiet place outside in nature and within, and listen, invite it in. And then if it feels right, that's important, from the heart center and the gut, then kind of take the invitation, go to the dance, go say yes. And also, if it feels like I shouldn't or she shouldn't, listen to that too, because it's protective. And then you have these divine appointments, and that whole summer, as Larry and I kept having one crazy coincidence, synchronicity after another, we laughed about it. And we kept saying, what is this all about? And I said, we should have lunch and figure this out. He'd let's laugh and say no, but it's crazy. He admitted it. I didn't know at the time it was going to turn into a book. That was literally zero thought for 1 second. And then look what happened. So I never had dreams of podcasting. So it's just listen and stay open and set your intentions, write it down. And I think it works better if they're loving and maybe in some sort of divine service rather than an egoic accumulation of status, power, money, and stuff. None of those things are wrong, but if you worship and chase them, you're back on that treadmill in the mirage. You know, you have billionaires trying to get more money and sociopaths trying to get more power, and that throws the balance off. Be part of the greater good.
And then it all comes to a grinding halt. One morning you wake up.
Yeah. It changes. It's like you're on the show's canceled, had a great run, and now what's my next role? Thank God I hate to get trapped as this forever. It sounds like the worst of all Greek myths. Yeah, so you have this nanosecond as you and me, and on a beautiful echo magnet hurtling through space. And, you know, if it was World War III tonight, I would just give thanks for a great run. And I'd be very excited to see what's next. I think it would be, on a linear level, a shame, but the planet would redo itself. It's probably obliterated some form of us over and over again because we can't seem to get it right. And maybe that's part of the higher programming or whatever. But life itself, the animating force, will just continue to take on new infinite forms using carbon from old stars, which is insane. And then have a whole new set of really cool and exotic, colorful things. And, you know, planet has its nice little run until the sun takes a big breath, expands, does its supernova gig, and then the Earth moves on and becomes whatever that is going to be next, that consciousness. And this goes on beyond time. What is the universe, 11 billion years old? That's just what we know. It's insane. This whole thing's an insane miracle, dream, simulation, whatever it is. So figure out what you want to do that resonates with you, and be kind, and try to, only selfishly, because it feels really good to be kind of humble and like the service of this force, letting the source, this infinite, intelligently loving source, guide you, and rather than this tiny pinhole ego try to figure out how to get itself happy.
Well, first a renovation, then a rebuild, and you know, if you know the house is going to be renovated, you must find a temporary shelter to go through the process of renovation. I think that's the advantage of having prophetic dreams, or having good meditations, saying prayers for direction, you know, ask and it shall be given to you, that kind of stuff. And so all these physical developments take you to a place where you know something, a storm's coming, but you know enough to get some shelter somewhere. You don't have to rise, you know, like, oh my God, my feet are wet. How did that happen? Well, I'll look up and there'll be lightning and thunder and rain them out, you know. So we're gonna have more at the latter part of the show about the Four Horsemen and more about what happened in World War III as a closing monologue. But right now, Oz, do we have any questions for our guest tonight from our wonderful audience here? Have they emailed or sent things in the chat?
Yeah, we got quite a few questions. Let's see, I'll start on Facebook from Betty. Whoever continues to blame Russia will pay with karma.
Whoa. Why Russia? Betty, can you explain that? Why Russia? I mean, people are blaming China a lot. Spiritually speaking, it's not good to blame anybody. You know, it's the blame game never works. But is there a response to that? Why Russia? Why karma? That's a really interesting question. Go ahead.
Yeah. We've got several from on YouTube. Blue Moon asks, are we looking at the U.S. economy collapse?
The price of gold went up over $100 today. It's at an all-time high. Silver is going to $100 US, probably going to go to $200. I've been predicting since the late 70s, and more recently on my book, The New Earth, in about 2011, that the price of silver was going to go to the moon. Here we are. What does that mean? The paper money, people don't have confidence in it. Already we have the Middle East countries combined with Russia and China. They're starting to buy gold buy oil with gold and not the US buck. Farmers are having trouble producing crops. The world is retaliating. It's upset with us, as Paul was saying about being in harmony and slowing down and realizing what's going on. The world is changing every day with injustice. I guess the key word here is fear. We have our political leaders and their secret police and or their military forces causing fear in the hearts of the most vulnerable, the weak, and the unprotected. And the world is rebuking us with volcanic activities. I have a friend of mine, Ian Connedy. He is a retired political lobbyist, and he's been a writer all his life. And he is every day talking about earthquakes, talking about volcanic activities, talking about disruption. So is the world economy in trouble? Yes, it is. And, it was the Second World War when the Japanese military decided to take over the world because there was an oil embargo towards Japan. That caused the entrance of Japan into the Second World War. So are we having an oil embargo now? What do you think? We have Marines taking over oil tankers in the Gulf of, I'm going to call it the Gulf of Mexico because I'm endeared to that name. I know it well. I've been there a few times. So is the world going to go through economic chaos? Are there going to be shortages? Well, if we go back to the Four Horsemen, one of them represents, the black horse represents famine and injustice. That comes after war and violence is started. And we're already this far away from the Red Horseman, going on the path. We're talking about consciousness now. So I think the answer to that is yes. I'm not trying to scare anybody. My book in 2011 it was full of what's happening on now. It's about 80% of the predictions have occurred there. A short commercial break. Go to my website, douglasjamescottrell.com, and buy a copy of that book. 2011, we were predicting what's happening forward up until here, 2026, 2028, 2030. The turnaround will be 2030 to 2033. That's when the renovation is going to cease and we'll be able to rebuild again. Sorry to get off on that a little bit, but the point is, yes, we're in a bit of a collapse here agriculturally. I'm thinking there's going to be biological weapons used to kill animals and to cause influenza and other respiratory disease. Sorry to say that, my friends. Wear a mask. Go ahead, Oz. Next question.
Let's see here. We got just some statements. Evil in this place has a place in this world, just as good does. We live in a world of duality. Evil is required to maintain balance.
I think let's leave that one to Paul. Paul, what do you think about that?
I like that, and actually, I agree with that. I think that we're deep in this polarity realm, and to have anything, light, dark, hot, cold, this, that, other, to have super deep connection, you have to feel separate. And I think if we got beyond morality, which is very hard to do, and you need morality in the linear realm, but you just basically have these opposing forces. If you look at it like a giant piano, you have what are lower vibrations and low notes, and you have high notes and middle notes. But if you play them all together, I used to be a musician, a piano player in fact, you can create some unbelievable sounds, and you have dissonance that resolves, and that's beautiful. Sometimes it doesn't resolve. And you have all this music, you have Beethoven, Mozart, the Beatles. And in this world, there's such extreme beauty, like drop you to your knees and cry. And then there's such heinous brutality and barbaric ugliness. And it's, God, it's the extremes of both, and then there's a whole middle. And that just, to me, is the realm. Everyone's thinking they're going to make the world better. We'll finally figure it out and move the furniture around. I don't think so. I think it's always going to be like this. If you so wanted a more utopian realm, it probably goes there. But if this was like Westworld, you wouldn't come here and try to turn it into, medieval world or utopian world. You basically get kicked out and you have to get back on the universal monorail and find what you were looking for. But this is an incredible place to come into physical form with a trillion-cell nerve suit and emotions and a multidimensional energy field, and have all these experiences and be gifted with free choice. Within whatever that soul wants to do. The soul might want to be a piece of shit, orange, grifting president, or it might want to be a barefoot monk walking across the country like they are right now for peace. We might want to be a dog. I don't know, but that's the realm. And we just can't be, it's hard because I get as attached as anybody. It's sort of by design. You don't want to lose who you are, the people you love, your house, but everything is temporary. And so you have to kind of just go with it. If things get wiped out, they will eventually or soon. You just have to find your place in that. And unfortunately, our country is in a very dark stage of fascism and fear and manipulation based on oligarchs and greed. People are manipulated, uneducated. And this is what we have. It's horrible. They're grabbing people off the streets. Like they have in other fascist realms. They killed that poor woman the other day while they gave her mixed signals. But a third of the country, mostly men, ugly fucking men with baseball hats and, in their basements, whose lives have become so contorted and they become so disconnected that they're cheering this on, that their identity is so tied up in this. And that's what we have. And then we have people like you two bringing a whole lot of light and love and consciousness and awareness into the realm.
Well, there's an old adage to answer the question. A story that I thought was sobering and yet humorous. And it goes something like a seeker is on the path. He's struggling to go up the path. He's looking for illumination. He's looking for the truth. He goes through all the meandering and the trials and tribulations. And finally, he sees the end of the path. And standing there on the left side is the devil. And standing on the right side is the Christ. And they're shaking hands. They're happy because he made it. He fought to the end of the path. And they said, see, we helped you get here. Anyway, that was 30 years ago. Somebody told me that story. And since so is there an answer to the question? Answer to the question, or is yes, there is a need for evil. It teaches us what is good. Put it that way. Oz, next question.
Oh, okay. I think these might be for Paul. What is your favorite place in Martha's Vineyard? And tell us about your experience with miracles on Martha's Vineyard.
Oh, that's a sweet question. All right, favorite place, the highest vibe for me is on the beaches of Quina, which is where the Indian reservation of the Wampanoag is. And there's these gorgeous clay cliffs. The sunset there is unbelievable. In the summer, the water is kind of on the warmer side. And it's a very sacred place. I've had many a beautiful metaphysical experience there. Speaking of miracles, I heard the voice of the universe there for the first time, literally outwardly, when I was a total agnostic atheist. So imagine how that would freak out a little tiny consciousness. Like, wait, excuse me, this isn't my paradigm. Who said what? And basically what it said is I'm one with thee. It was love, so much love. And I've had a lot of miracles up there. And in fact, the person who said that might have read my book. The girl I was in love with in that book, and forever will love, her last name literally was Miracle, and it was not something I changed to be cute. And when I met her in Encinitas, I knew her for a week. I did not know that was her last name until we signed into a yoga class. And then I had a laugh because I had written in a journal, I think the day before I met her, that I thought it was going to take a miracle for me to meet someone and fall in love again. And the universe said, oh, quite literally, oh, well, if that's what you want, here. So that was another one of the infinite synchronicities. Thanks for the question, whoever said that.
Yep, that was from Carrie on YouTube. And a follow-up question was, from your travels and talking with various people on your podcast, what do you see as the future of education?
Oh, what a great question. One, if we're going to talk education, anybody who's really curious about it, read a couple books by John Taylor Gatto. One, Dumbing Us Down. It's about 110 pages. Another one, different kind of teacher, short. But then there's a big one called The Underground History of American Education. One of the great history books I've ever read. And you will understand why people are the way they are, why it works the way it is, how the system of education was put together, and why it is the way, who designed it. And you can read the memos. So it's some unbelievable, unsettlingly wonderful inside information. In terms of the future, I'm hoping we get away from machines and AI and all that, and we get back to more of a Socratic Greek. Remember the Vitruvian Man with Leonardo da Vinci? Sort of a holistic experience of education where to educate, the word means from Latin is to draw out from within you. Good teachers draw out, they don't put in. It's not a brainwashing experiment, well, social conditioning experience. It's what we have now. So I would hope the future is more liberated and free. And if I ever had kids, and it's far-fetched at this point, I would probably homeschool, world school them, and just teach them to read and be curious and see where their hearts lead them. Is it art or mathematics or physics? Great question.
All right. There's agreement with the book.
Think for yourself.
Other question on us.
No, I think that's what we've got for right now.
Okay.
This is fun. I love give and take. When I used to do my talks, I hated to just be the blabbermouth. You probably can't tell from tonight, but I love to get it really going, interacting. And usually people always started slow, but it was like a campfire, a good fire. And you kind of cultivate it, go to kindling. And then it became this living, loving, exciting, free-flowing dialogue, give and take. And to me, it was different every time because it was alive and unique. And it was both, everybody was growing and learning and interacting. So I like the way you guys do.
Well, the website is paulsamueldolman.com. You want to spell that out for people just so they can find
Sure.
you. You have several books, right? You have,
Yeah.
which we have not spoken about tonight. We haven't put the other titles yet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just Paul and then SAMUELDOLMAN.com. You just Google that, it should pop up. And the podcast is on like multiple platforms. Shout out to Matthew Sells, the technical guy. I have no technical abilities in my life. And as even tonight we saw, barely tolerate my existence. So I'm going to do some teaching and do something. Luckily, it never involves a live sacrifice, or maybe one day it'll be me. But God bless them. And I appreciate them allowing this to go on. I thought they weren't going to let it happen.
Well, we have power. We have the power of the Oz. He's behind the scenes here in the back room, and he knows what buttons to push, what levers to pull, and here we are. So it's great to have you on
Maybe
today.
the fifth horseman is the technology, the AI. Is there any way to get one of the horsemen to carry Elon Musk away and some of those other Peter Thiel, all those weird, all that? It seemed more like that happened to wander into this realm to. It would make more sense. Like human beings would want to destroy their own environment, but if it's some weird lizard creatures that just having a good time bunking, this weird dumb group of sheep, that would make sense at least.
Well, we'll know when we get there.
A lot of notes on that one. Sorry.
Listen, Paul, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. We're going to do the final monologue now and pick up where we left off about Out of Chaos, a final word of hope. You're welcome to stick around, but otherwise, it's great to have you on the show tonight. And I encourage people to look you up. You're a very popular man with a good philosophy, and I'm sure for somebody that wants to enjoy their path, they could probably hook up with you or read your book and find their way. I think that's a good idea.
Oh, very kind. And hey, anyone listening, you can find me, send me a note. I still get a lot of notes from the book, for the shows, and I always respond. And appreciate you guys. Just send a lot of love out to the world. It's not easy being a human being or any form, except maybe those lizards. But thank you all. God bless you, and be a loving light in the world. And shout out to you two guys for making a positive difference in the world.
Okay, until next time, my friend. God bless.
Amen.
Okay, we'll be right back. Take another short break for the closing monologue. Out of Chaos, a final word of hope. We'll be right back after this.
Are you ready for the future? A future filled with challenges, changes, and opportunities? Discover the New Earth by Douglas James Cottrell, PhD, a groundbreaking guide to understanding the evolution of our planet. Learn how to prepare yourself and your loved ones for the unpredictable. With insights from the Akashic Records and quantum meditation, this book offers precise predictions and practical advice. Explore how geographic areas will be affected and become a co-creator in shaping the new era of our planet. Over 370 pages of essential knowledge. Secure your ultimate guide to the future. Order the New Earth today.
Well, what a wonderful show we've had tonight. Oz, it's great that you're in the background there, and thank you to the audience who have taken the time to send in their questions in the chat. Very interesting question, my friends. I'm going to ask you to subscribe to the show, ring the bell, check the chat, whatever it takes to make sure we stay on the air and we spread the good word around to all the people about our show, The Soul Report Live. The final monologue tonight is Out of Chaos, a final word of hope. As we come to the end of tonight's Soul Report, I want to leave you not with fear, but with clarity and hope. We've talked tonight about nations, power, conflict, and the frightening possibility of global war. But it would be incomplete and perhaps dishonest if we didn't also acknowledge something deeper. It's not just humanity that appears to be in distress. The planet itself seems to be responding. I've often said the planet has its own consciousness. It has its own aura, the Aurora Borealis, for instance. It's more human-like than we give it credit for. It is a living entity. Across the world, we are witnessing an undeniable increase in Earth activity. More frequent and powerful earthquakes, increased volcanic eruptions. Is the Earth blowing its top? Is it angry? Flooding in places that we have never known it to do before. Wildfires consuming vast regions. Tsunamis, landslides, and rising seas. In my book, The New Earth, we talked about, and I challenged Dr. Suzuki when I was on Richard Syrett's show years ago. I had predicted that the oceans were going to rise not 1 degree Celsius, not 2 degrees Celsius, not 3, but exactly 4 degrees Celsius. 1 degree is really bad. 4 degrees is what we have now. Absolutely disaster. I predicted that back in 2010 or just before that. I also had a recent dream in which I saw the killer whales, I'm not sure their more technical name, the black and white ones, along with sharks swimming vigorously up and down the coastlines with people on shore watching them. And they seemed to be trying to get out of the water. They were having like bumper to bumper rush hour traffic as they were swimming so vigorously. And I wondered in this dream vision, what's causing that? Why are they so close to shore? And I wonder, is it because undersea volcanic activity is releasing toxic gas? Or is it my back to the old temperature rising that we're now going to go past 4 degrees Celsius? Is that what is driving these sea monsters and large animals up to the shore. Something to think about. But this is not, a political statement about the world. It's an observable reality. Now science explains such of the things as I've talked about, caused by tectonic movement, climate change, ocean warming, and atmospheric instability. And those explanations matter, of course, but my vision was of this years before, that the inside of the world, the core of the world, the planet, was heating up. And the reason it was heating up, I saw this clearly, was that the core was spinning in a different direction to the outer part of the planet, or, if you will, the crust. And that rotation of inner core or inner mass, molten lava, and outer core was why the oceans were heating up. I announced that as my dream vision, as I said, and it's still recorded somewhere there on the radio station where Richard Serrett was the host. That was the cause. It wasn't from the atmosphere, it was from inside. Something's going on with the planet. So is this a spiritual, mystical event, or is this a random geographical and physical matter problem? Is it a gravitational thing? I don't know. But what I saw was that the planet was heating up from the inside out, which means it's not going to stop. It's going to continue until such time as relief comes to the faults in the planet, until some time where everything settles down. Perhaps the rotation of the planet is about to happen. Edgar Cayce once predicted that the planet was going to rotate and it was going to flip over about 90 degrees from its present rotation, which of course would mean that the oceans would spill out of their basins and rock over the Earth, as Ross Peterson back in 1974 had predicted. So we have that in front of us. Those people who live on the coastlines want to pay extra special attention to those predictions. But spiritually speaking, many ancient traditions and those who are believers, if you will, have something else intent, that the earth is not inert, that the earth is alive, and that when imbalance reaches a threshold, the earth responds. Not in anger, but in correction. So these disasters are the earth correcting itself. These are signs from the sea. I want to share something special with you, and that is that dream the dream. Look for the vision. Say the prayers for protection. Obey your spiritual beliefs. Don't discount them. Now's the time that when you have a spiritual belief, a spiritual ceremony or practice, now's the time for you to practice it. Don't bypass it because it's easy. It's your spiritual salvation. As you come to that greater understanding, then when the scientists suggest such behavior is caused by changes in water temperature, underwater volcanic activity, gas releases, pollution, disruption of magnetic fields, or sonic disturbances, or aliens coming from space, or a gigantic meteor that's going to come by and disrupt the planet, remember, you're in charge, my friend. You can see what's going to happen with your spiritual powers and abilities. You don't have to be a master, you just have to pay attention, because you're a spiritual being in a physical body. And coming to that understanding to enjoy today. Don't be afraid of tomorrow or next week. Be practical in what you do today, but enjoy your steps. As you continue to do that, remember the sea is restless, the land is shifting, the nations are trembling. Scripture and ancient wisdom, God, the four elements represent balance. And right now, all four are moving. Fire through war and wildlife, water through floods and rising seas, earth through quakes and eruptions, air through storms and climate extremes. But this doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It means the end of an imbalance. That is the secret tonight. That is the point of the show, that this time of imbalance is at hand. Creation itself is pressing humanity towards accountability. Remember that. Creation itself is pressing humanity towards accountability. So is there hope? Here is the part I want you to hear clearly. Hope does not come from the absence of chaos. Hope is born inside chaos. Every major spiritual tradition teaches this. The Exodus came after oppression. Resurrection came after crucifixion. Renewal comes after collapse. Why are we witnessing many apocalyptic, but apocalyptic at its root? It means it's unveiling. What is being unveiled? Systems built on greed, and they cannot endure. Power without consciousness collapses. Humanity cannot dominate the earth without consequence. Fear-based leadership fails in the long run. In my life, I've seen so many regimes fail that were built on fear. They cannot last because they're built on corruption, and corruption is a rotting foundation. Humanity's time is now. Its capacity is to awaken. So what can we do, you might ask? What can I possibly do in the face of all this? Here's the truth. You cannot control nations. You cannot stop earthquakes. You cannot prevent every war. But here's what you can do. You, as a spiritual being in a physical body, in this time of uncertainty, this time of chaos, this time of renovation, you can do this each and every day. Choose compassion over cruelty. Choose awareness over denial. Choose stewardship over exploitation. Choose hope over despair. Every conscious choice interrupts the cycle of destruction. When enough people choose present instead of panic, the future bends. So I'll leave you with this. The world is not ending, it's transitioning. Humanity is not doomed, it is being tested. The earth is not angry, it is rebalancing. And hope is not naive, it is necessary. We are living in a birth canal, not a grave. The contractions are intense, but new life does not come without pressure. So as we leave you tonight, do not be afraid. Be awake, be kind to one another, be gentle with the earth, be strong in spirit, and remember, one soul, one thought, one deed at a time. And we are not watching history unfold, we are participating in it. On behalf of Oz, Jack Bialik, the co-producer, and my special guest tonight, Paul Samuel Dolman, good night and good luck. May God bless you, my friends. Until next time. By the way, next week we have with us, returning, maybe not next week, but in the next coming weeks, Dr. Noah St. John, who's been on the show before. He's a best-selling author and thought leader who's helping people overcome their greatest fear of 2026, being replaced by AI. Oh my God. Look out, Douglas. Look out, Jack. AI is going to take over the Soul Report show. Its insights will help us refrain from fear and look to faith in action. Until then, stay kind, stay awake, and stay ready. Because when the horsemen ride, my friends, the healers must rise. Good night, and God bless.